It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday. That means it's time for a robust business conversation on Business Morning here on Channels Television. You're welcome. I'm Inni John Mekwa. Well, let's start from the oil space. Prices climbed today after 2 sessions of losses as industry data showed an unexpected drop in the United States crude and fuel stocks, offsetting concerns of a possible rise in supplies from Iran. Brent's crude futures rose 41 cents to $91.19 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $89.74 a barrel, and that was up 38 cents. On the supply is the key factor that's pumped up our oil price at this time. There are also concerns about a possible Iran nuclear deal that could unleash more oil into the global markets, weighing on price. Back here in Nigeria, social enterprise, the Center for Values and Leadership, has held its 19th annual lecture and international leadership symposium as part of efforts to drive rational public conversation on issues facing Africa. At the heart of the meeting, which was held in Lagos, there are discussions around resuscitating the continent's economy post-COVID-19. Well, our correspondent Willie Bong was there and filed in this report.
It's yet another year of Talkfest for the Center for Values and Leadership as it holds the 19th edition of its annual flagship international lecture in Lagos. This year's symposium brings together renowned economists and seasoned experts to share their thoughts on the theme, Economic Evolution of Life After COVID-19, and recommend measures on how to rebuild African economies. The keynote speaker and political economist Professor Kingsley Moghalu believes that beyond aid for macroeconomic stability, African economies must pursue financing for development.
The problem with Nigeria's economy and the economy of most African countries is that they have thousands of economists, traditional economists, good in all the nations, but they're not addressing the two most fundamental issues that determine the wealth of nations. One, economic philosophy. Number two, political economy.
Professor Moghalu further shares his concern over Nigeria's debt in the midst of the pandemic.
The situation in which we are now is such that it seems as if the government of Nigeria cannot survive without borrowing. And so there is a borrowing plan, quote unquote, which plans to have us at 50 trillion naira of debt by 2023.
One of the panelists, foremost economist Dr. Ayo Teriba, says Africa should grow wealth and not riches.
As small as Dubai is in terms of population and in land area, as a city, its output is now the same as that of Lagos. And the message to us in Africa, to us in Nigeria, to us across the 36 states is focus on your wealth.
The founder of CVL, Professor Patty Tomi, is also of the opinion that African leaders must be strategic in order to avoid a jobless growth.
What has happened with African leaders, I don't know what the word is, devaluing African intellect or running away from intellect, is that we are now almost wholly dependent on the multilaterals, the World Banks and co, to tell us what to do, what the problem is. And many times they don't know half what the indigenous intellectuals know. So we need to stop this dependence on Washington for knowledge of how we solve our problems.
The event was brought to a close with the cutting of a cake to mark the birthday of the founder. Will Ibong, Channels Television News.
Well, the introduction of electronic invoicing and evaluator for exporters and importers by the Central Bank of Nigeria is a proposal that has raised a lot of concerns. And one of those concerns is the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. The Chief Executive Officer joins us now, Dr. Mudu Yusuf, to tell us why he is so concerned about this e-invoicing and e-evaluator. Good morning, Dr. Yusuf.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good to have you, as usual. So the e-voicing is a system where you're supposed to have business-to-business invoices digitally paired, and this is supposed to bring a lot of cleansing to the system. Maybe you should explain to us first, help us to understand, this system, e-invoicing and e-evaluator, how it's supposed to work and why you are concerned.
Well, thank you very much. I think the concern of the Central Bank of Nigeria is about issues of over-invoicing, because I think there are reports, or they have, seen indications of some people trying to move foreign exchange out of this country illegitimately using the platform of trade. And in the process, a number of people possibly over-invoice. They increase the value of what they are buying so that they can ship out a lot more foreign exchange. And of course, that concern is justified. That is why the CBN has gone ahead to introduce this e-invoicing. And the whole idea is to normalize the values that people bring forward, to make sure that those values are reasonable and they are also proportionate to whatever goods they are bringing in. So in the process, the CBN has now introduced a band, 2.5%, plus or minus, above or below which any transaction will not be authorized by the CBN in the form of Form M. In other words, if the CBN has established a value, which is a benchmark price, if your price is 2.5% above it, or 2.5 below it, it will not be approved. That is the whole idea. The same thing applies for exports. So the whole idea is to checkmate malpractices in the process of people trying to take out foreign exchange illegitimately. But the concern that we have, because this is about valuation, the concern that we have first is about the pricing flexibility. Sometimes as a business person, it is possible for you to get a very good bargain in terms of pricing. You can have a better bargain if you're an exporter, a better bargain in terms of getting a higher value for your exports. So if your price is now above the benchmark of the CBN,
then you will lose out.
Then that transaction will not happen. And again, as an importer, you can have a very good bargain to lower the price of the value of your imports.
Maybe get more quantity out.
Yes, either more quantity out or based on relationship. There's also geographical differentiation in pricing. You cannot compare the prices you get from Europe and all of that to what you get from China. There are also issues of grade, depending on what quality of things you are bringing in.
The goods.
So all of these things will affect the pricing. And once this pricing falls below or above the benchmark that the CBN has authorized, that transaction will not happen.
Okay, but
so the concern is that is not sustainable.
So what do you propose? I mean, because even from your explanation,
Yes.
there is a challenge, which is people trying to take advantage of the system, to get foreign exchange out. So from your perspective, what should be done, to deal with that challenge?
Now, the point we are making is that first, statutorily, the responsibility of valuation belongs to the Nigeria Customs Service. And the Nigeria Customs Service have a whole department on valuation. They have the structure, they have the machinery, they have the network.
But they're perhaps not functioning well. That is why the CBN is...
Now, that is not a reason to go and set up a parallel body. Because if you continue to run the system this way, the whole system will be replete of so many institutions that you have to deal with. The business community is already overburdened by too many compliance and regulatory issues in the international trade arena. Too many institutions, too many overlapping institutions, too many challenges in terms of processes, too many documentations, too many even issues of corruption and extortion. So this burden is already overwhelming. So the point we are making is that if you have a state institution, first, that has the statutory responsibility for this, if they are not doing it well, please collaborate with them. They are all agencies of government. The Customs is an agency of government. The CBN is an agency of government. They have a common objective to ensure that there is proper and appropriate value for whatever products bring. And again, some of the challenges that is faced in the business community is that whereas this customs is always accusing importers of undervaluation or underinvoicing because they don't want to pay the right duty. You know, the objective, primary objective, at least as far as the Nigeria custom is concerned, is revenue generation.
Should it be that? That's another conversation.
It's another conversation. You know, so they often accuse the importers of undervaluation or under-invoicing. Yeah. Because they want to evade duties. So right from the point of issuing of PAR, which is the pre-assessment, pre-arrival assessment report, it's a document that indicates how much duty you should pay. You begin to run into challenges. Even when you get the PAR, when you get to the ports, there are all manner of queries. Right from the valuation to the CIU, to the FOU, to the strike force, all manner of queries, all around issues of either under declaration, under invoicing, or wrong classification. So it's a lot of rigor. So the point I'm making is that if you have all those systems in place, of course, there are likely to be gaps. There is no system that is perfect. Rather than set up a parallel institution, which will compound the problem of red tape and bureaucracy, and possibly even extortion in the international trade process, let the CBN collaborate with the Nigeria Customs Service to identify the gaps that exist and let them fix it at that point. And this is so that they can save the business community the added burden.
Because this is why because in your release, you also talked about the high cost of trade.
Yes, high cost of trade. You see, when the DG of WTO, our own Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, addressed the ministerial retreat, midterm review that was done a few months ago. Even the president was in attendance. And the point she made, and she must be speaking from the point of a well-informed person, is that the trade cost in Africa is far higher than what you have in the rest of the world. And even in Nigeria, the trade cost is even higher than the African average. No, that's an indication of the challenges that the business community is facing as far as international trade process is concerned. It ranges from issues of documentation, valuation, the logistics in and out of the port, the challenges with the terminal operators, challenges with shipping companies, issues of demurrage, and even in the import tariff. In addition to that, you even have quite a number of policies around FX that is having a very significant effect on trade. So even for the WTO to acknowledge the fact that trade cost is very high, and these things hurt investment. The government has been talking about growing investment. The government has been talking about ease of doing business.
Diversification.
Diversification, creating jobs. It is this investor that will deliver these things. If the environment is too hostile and too difficult for them, he will not be able to deliver it. So that is the spirit in which we are asking for a review.
Well, right now it's been suspended by
Well, happily, the House of Representatives, through a resolution, has a motion advising the CBN to suspend it. As we speak, it has not been effective yet.
It's supposed to be effective from the 1st of this month.
From the 1st of January. And other stakeholders have also raised concerns about it. The Manufacturers Association have raised concern. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce has raised concern. The Association of Freight Forwarders and all these people, operators in the ports, all of them have raised concern. And all of these things also underscore the importance of stakeholder engagement.
You know, just before you go into that, yes, Dr. Yusuf, I've spoken to a lot of people who are involved in imports and exports and manufacturing, and the picture that they paint when it comes to dealing with getting goods out of the country, or especially, or even getting it into the country, is a complicated one. Isn't there a way? I know that I also spoke to someone who said their company is a one-stop shop. So if you want to export, maybe you go to them, they help you do, you know, all the legwork and all that. Is there no way to simplify this process? Must we go through, you know, all of this?
Well, it's a very big challenge. And I know that even the government is concerned about it. Recall that we have seen a series of presidential task force around this Apapa port gridlock. I know that the Ease of Doing Business Office, that's PEBEC, has also been trying to reform the whole system. There's a proposal around what is called a single window, which will remove this human interface, and reduce all this documentation. There are proposals to also introduce the use of scanners, which is using technology. Rather than this physical examination of cargo, all those proposals are on the table. But the speed of implementation and the fact that there are also elements in the system that are resistant to change because they are major beneficiaries of the status quo.
And these elements cannot be weeded out. I mean, they're so powerful that...
That is why we are also calling on government to demonstrate the political will to deal with these issues of reforming the entire ecosystem of our international trade process. Because you have infrastructure issues, you have institutional issues, you have regulatory issues, you have policy issues. Sometimes we even have foreign exchange issues.
Yeah,
all of these things affecting trade. And for an economy to perform optimally, you need trade. And trade is not just about going to import something to sell. It's also about exports.
Exactly.
It's about bringing things that even support even the manufacturing sector. They need equipment, they need some things. It's about getting the country to also plug into the global value chain, which is one very good way for this economy to prosper. It's not just about looking inwards. It's not just about building a wall around ourselves. It's also about connecting to the global value chain. If you don't get it right with this ecosystem around international trade, there's no way that can happen. So it should be a major priority of government.
Yeah, and you also talked about, I mean, not just you, I mean, it seems to be common knowledge, compromise in the system.
Yes.
So, palms have to be settled in the midst. We have the customs, we have the different agencies, and unfortunately, the issue of this, getting the representatives of these agencies to just do their job is proving to be a bit difficult. And so they bring a regulator, and even the regulator is supposed to be watching over the other agencies, also got compromising. So it seems like a web that cannot be...
Well, these are issues of, these are institutional issues, which borders a lot on corruption. And for you to deal with corruption, I think in our system, there is too much emphasis on policing. Okay. Trying to catch people who are corrupt. But, there are policies that can also help you to eliminate corruption. Or maybe, there are systems.
Or maybe because some of these agencies have been placed as revenue-making agencies instead of, normally regulating activities to get the system working.
Well, apart from that, if you are even revenue-making agency or revenue-generating agencies, yes, you are supposed to generate the revenue for government.
Not for yourself.
Not for yourself, So it's about systems. First, if you use more technology, it will help to reduce corruption. If you reduce discretionary powers, because sometimes some of these officers have the powers to determine one way or the other, which can put a lot of burden on those people who are in business. So if somebody has so much powers,
absolute power, absolute corruption,
then it creates room for corruption because he can wield the power either way. And in order for you to get him to wield the power in your favor or to exert the discretion in your favor, sometimes you are compelled to do something. That is one. Then secondly, you need a very sound and credible dispute resolution system. Because in the whole system, if you have an issue, if you have a grouse, there's no credible dispute resolution system.
You have to make people happy for you to get out of it.
Yes. But if you have an independent body that you can escalate your matters to.
And there's a standard.
That's a standard that is clear. to everybody. Some of these things will reduce.
All
So
right,
these are
Dr.
some of the
Muda.
reform initiatives that needs to happen.
All right, Dr. Muda. Now, the International Monetary Fund is asking the federal government to remove official exchange rates. I know that's one of the areas you really like to talk about, but we'll take a break now. When we come back,
Okay.
we'll have that conversation. So do stay with us. It's Business Morning on Channels Television. The conversation continues after this break. You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and we're discussing facilitating international trade, especially following the proposal by the CBN to introduce e-invoicing and e-evaluator. We have Dr. Muda Yusuf here, the CEO of CPPE, for this conversation. So just before we went to that break, we're talking about the IMF asking the federal government to remove official exchange rate. And I know that's even one of the reasons for this e-invoicing, like you've said, is people seem to be taking advantage of the weakness in the system to get out more foreign exchange. So does it follow, or is that, would you say, one of the reasons? How do we connect that to IMF asking us to remove the official
You see, one of the biggest incentives for over-invoicing is the fact that you have a subsidized foreign exchange. In the official window, exchange rate is about 416.
Yes.
In the parallel market, it's about 570. You can see the gap. So if you are smart enough, in quote, to move $1 million from the official window to the parallel market window, you are talking about...
You're a millionaire.
100 million, over 100 million straight away.
Without any hard work.
Yes, if you have the connection or the... But that is, of course, illegal.
Of course, obviously.
But the incentive has been created for that to happen. So when people see that kind of incentive and you make that kind of money, which is even much more than the profit you will make.
Doing a normal
business,
adding value to the real sector.
Bringing the raw materials.
Going through the trouble of overhead costs.
Overhead costs, the port problem, buying diesel, selling it. You can't make that kind of profit. So the issue is that some of these problems that we are trying to solve are actually symptoms of a much deeper problem or challenge. And the fundamental issue is that when you have a subsidy environment, you are bound to have these kind of problems. If you do not address the cause of the problem, and you think that you can begin to police people around, you cannot achieve much. It's just like saying that I want to stop smuggling of petroleum products. If you line up all the security agencies around the country, you can't stop it.
They'll get their share.
Yes, because the incentive is too much. So the point here, and I'm connecting it to now this issue of invoicing, is that if you have an exchange rate that eliminates or drastically reduces the premium between the official window and the parallel market window, a lot of these abuses
But is that
will be
possible? Is that possible? I know we've talked about what's the true value of Naira, and if it's left to float, some of the consequences it will have, you know, on the currency and the economy.
What consequences? Exchange is already 570. Can it be worse than that? Certainly not. But the point is, if you want this economy to function very well, that is the way to go. Some of the IMF propositions, some of them may not be socially feasible or politically feasible, like the issue of petroleum subsidy. That may be difficult. But the issue of the unification of the exchange rate, even the government has even indicated that that is what they want to do. It's contained, it was in the ERGP, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, in the document. It's also even in this the new development plan. It's an objective of government. Yes. It's a macroeconomic objective that you have to unify the exchange rate. But for some reasons,
maybe we're not ready for it yet?
Well, the CBN has been reluctant for whatever reasons. And that has been creating a lot of problems. One, is creating this problem of over-invoicing because a lot of people are now in the official window because they want to take advantage of this premium. Secondly, it also reduces the incentive for people to bring in capital into the economy. Because if you are bringing in capital officially, you have to bring it in
official
or the official rate.
Yes.
And if the foreign investor or the portfolio investor knows that there's a parallel market rate of 570, you are talking of a premium of close to 50%. They won't bring the money. Or if they bring it, some of them may even again resort to all these under the table things. That is why at the time, even the CBN were running after the embassies, running after all sorts of people,
Yes.
that they were not bringing in their funds through the normal channel. It's a policy problem. So if we are running an economy where we say that we need a lot more foreign exchange, apart from oil, you need to make sure that this rate is also right.
So what do you think?
So apart from the demand issue,
yeah, there's the supply.
It's also creating a supply problem because it's blocking people from bringing in money because we need investors. And it is this investor that will bring in the foreign exchange, apart from oil. So if there is no appropriate pricing of the foreign exchange, then they will not bring it in.
What do you think would be an appropriate price?
The issue is not about appropriate. The market will determine it.
Isn't that
now we have two prices.
Yes.
And there are two extremes.
It's very extreme.
We have one 570, you have one 416. So even if we have it in the middle at around 500, is that not still better for this economy? And you have more liquidity in the system. Right now, there's no liquidity in the official window. Because you have more demand than supply.
Our foreign reserve is now less than $40 billion.
Yes, yes. Of course, a lot of things is happening. But if you have a much better mechanism of dealing with these effects, which is part of the thing the IMF is saying, just that the IMF also have there's some perception around IMF recommendations because people see it as anti-people, anti-this and anti-that. But we need to also look at it, we distill it. We pick what can work and what cannot work. Because sometimes the IMF also come with recommendations that may not be socially feasible because they are not also very conversant with the context in which we are operating. Because even for any policy, there has to be a social context. There is a political context. Sometimes there's even cultural that you have to take into account before you impose a policy on the people. These contextual issues are often not reckoned with by the IMF. But it is the responsibility of the economic managers to look at all these options and see what can work and what cannot work. And try to do things better.
But we've had a lot of CBN intervention, in recent times, and a lot of people have said that, we're actually seeing some fruits from the interventions.
It depends. We are talking about development finance. That's a completely different thing. The issue of FX is of a greater systemic importance than development finance, because the issue of FX cuts across practically all aspects of the economy. And if you don't get it right, it has a systemic effect affecting all sectors. The interventions are essentially about agri, about manufacturing, pyramid, and all these things. That is what the interventions are all about. They are sector-specific, and they are more, of course, they are having some impact. But again, there is a debate as to whether that is the appropriate way to do it. There's a debate as to whether we are getting value for all the intervention. There is a conversation around the high rate of default and all of that. But we can't take away the point that it has brought some value into the system, at least to manufacturing and to agriculture. But of course, it can be done better.
Yeah, I think I spoke to, was it the manufacturer? So they have some special windows where the CBN is trying to make it easier for them to access, FX.
No, there was a request. You know, the Manufacturers Association visited the president and raised concern about access to FX.
Aviation also has that issue.
Well,
also.
aviation, I think, has some concession around import duty and all of that, some waivers around that. But again, we cannot be picking and choosing. We should make the entire system work for everybody. Manufacturing is important. Other sectors too are important. What is important is to have a policy that works well for everybody. Whether you are in manufacturing, whether you are in ICT, whether you are even in broadcasting. You also need equipment. You need to import some equipment that are not produced. How do you also access your forex? So every sector is bringing one value or the other to this economy. So we need a macroeconomic environment that will work for everybody. So that is why we are talking about normalizing this. The development finance is good. But again, we have to make sure that it works well, because I know that even many of the commercial banks, sometimes when they talk about this development finance, many of them are not too excited about it.
A lot of them say they can't access it?
No, they are worried about the risk. Because, I mean, as a bank.
Okay, as a bank.
Yes, if you lend the money.
Because even some of the benefactors say it's difficult to access some of those.
Yes, sometimes it can be very difficult, especially for the small businesses.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult because, again, for many SMEs to meet some of those things, the requirements can also be difficult. But you cannot deny the fact that some people are beneficiaries of it. But, again, it can work better than what is. We can reduce the default rate. We can make the system work better, because right now, even the commercial banks are not able to function properly in their role as financial intermediaries. Because the purpose of banking is financial intermediation. So rather than be waiting for the CBN intervention funds, the banks must be able to interface with the business community straight away.
Are you going to the point of the CRR? Funds? Is that what you're talking about?
Of course, it's part of it.
Because I think 2 banks got fined some days ago because they didn't meet up with their CRR.
Effective CRR for some banks is over 50%. So how will they function as a bank? The essence of banking is to mobilize resources from the surplus end of the economy to the deficit end of the economy. That is what banking is all about. But when you have taken away all their money, then what are they going to be doing? Then they'll be looking for commission on FX, doing this, doing that. That is what is left.
Trying to meet up with the catch-up cover-up.
So those are the things. We need to make the system work a lot better.
Okay, Doctor, just before we let you go now, you talk about policy. I'm talking of FX now, which is the point that we're settled on. And you said perhaps looking at the range, the 2 parts, where the prices are in the parallel and the official window now, if they meet in the middle, do you think that if the CBN wakes up today and say, okay, this is the unified rate, do you think it will automatically make everything come to like an arranged or an agreeable status?
It will have a substantial impact. It may not eliminate all the problems, but it's going to have a substantial impact in stabilizing the macroeconomic environment. It's going to encourage a lot more inflows. It's going to reduce pressure, even on the CBN, for demand for forex. Because some characters that are demanding for the forex in the official window are not actually business people. There are people who also want to take advantage.
Round trip.
Round trip. That's why the CBN is worried about this over-invoicing. So rather than be worrying about the over-invoicing, why not deal with the price and normalize the rate and make sure, very important, that we ensure that we also moderate money supply. Because if you don't check money supply,
that's also another.
The exchange rate will continue to depreciate, which is part of the challenges we are facing. When we have this problem of inflation, exchange rate is a major factor in it. And part of the reason we are having these pressures around inflation, around exchange rate, is also the explosion in money supply. So we need to keep our tap on it. Not necessarily by clamping down on the banks all the time for CRR, but you should also look at how the CBN itself is financing deficits. That is also contributing to inflation. So it's both a fiscal and monetary policy thing. Because the fiscal authorities are putting too much pressure on the CBN to be financing the deficit.
And that
And
brings
it's
more money
highly
to
highly
circulation.
inflationary. In fact, in economics, we even call it inflation tax. It's a tax on the people. But the people will not know. Because they are not seeing anybody going around. But it's an inflation tax. It's even worse than removal of subsidy. Yes.
All right, Dr. Mude Yusuf, the economy will always be of great concern to us, and at least we'll keep talking about it and hope that one day, at least the conversation will change, meaning that we're making progress.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, Dr.
Thank you.
Mude Yusuf, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
So let's go to the market now. We have Will standing by. It hasn't been a very green week in the equities market, but we will not give up. We will not give up. We'll just believe that this is just profit-taking, investors making the most of it. The earnings season is around the corner. Things will look up.
Yes, Winnie, as far as how yesterday's session went down, it was low, as you just said. You know, equities extended Monday's loss further down 0.31% at 47,057.24 points. And now this was triggered by Boa Foods, Unilever, Access Bank, and GTCO. We saw immense sell pressure on those counters. And then the month and year-to-date gains have also moderated. Now, total volume of transactions was, declined by 16.6% to 238.22 million units, valued at 5.09 billion naira, and transacted in 4,826 deals. Now, we saw that counter was a sea of red. There was a decline in the activity chart, and we're hoping that today's transaction will be boosted. Even if we don't have too much level of transaction, we'll get the big names to boost the market. Now, GTCO remained the most traded stock by volume and value at 32.35 million units and 887.64 million naira, respectively. Now, we're still seeing negative sentiments regarding its acquisition, 100% acquisition of Investment One Pension Managers Limited. Now, on the sectors, the insurance and oil and gas counters, banking, industrial and oil and gas counters were in the red yesterday, except for the consumer and insurance counters. Now, insurance was the biggest gainer yesterday. The bigger gainer, in fact, 2.35% up yesterday. And as measured by Market Bright, the sentiment was also negative. We're seeing 20 stocks declining against 16 other stocks that gain. And we're hoping that they pair up this line very soon. Now, at the NASD market, there was like opposite trading for the NASD investors yesterday. It was up 1.57% at 749.26 points. The market cap was boosted and stood at 634.46 billion naira. Now we'll move quickly to the volume of transaction yesterday was also up. We saw boost in that counter as well. Now at the fixed income market, there was relatively quiet transactions there. Market sentiment was not as bullish as we expected, especially as the investors are standing on the sidelines waiting for the NTB auction that's going to take place today. Now we see the NTB auction, there was more interest on the 11th of August 2022 paper. There was 5.5 billion naira. Both the 11th of August and the 25th of August paper saw a bit of traction yesterday. And to give us more direction as to where the markets will be going today, we have Choma Udu on the line to tell us how we're going to digest this information coming to the market, especially the NCB auction that's going to take place. Good morning, Choma.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here today. Now, the DMO is scheduled to conduct the Treasury Bills auction today. A total of 98.01 billion naira is on offer. What should we expect, especially with the current liquidity in the system?
Well, we're going to see a lot of interest in this space. Basically, the auction is restarting. We expect demand mostly at the one-year offering. The DMO is postured and positioned to take as much as they can, especially in the 1 year. We expect our rates to maintain or moderate slightly because of the liquidity we have in market. 308 billion. The market is up about 308 billion. This flows from OMO of about 139 billion yesterday. So we'll see a lot of interest at this space at the NCB.
So what should we expect? Should we see the trading levels? There's been a lull. What would you attribute this to in the market?
Well, it's basically the interest rates. You're right by saying there's been a lull in the market. It's been quiet. Rates traded at the range of 5 to 5.7, 5.2 at the long end of the T-bill curve, and then below 5% at the short end of the T-bill curve. If you go to the bond market, it's also quiet. Not much trading, just some trading at the belly of the curve. This week, the interest is just basically at the belly of the curve. When I say belly, I mean the big tenor on the 26, 27, 28, and down to the 27 to the 37. Rates will be trading in the range of 11.85 and 12. So for us, what we basically think is that the market is going to tap their activities from the stop rate we'll see at today's auction.
Okay, so looking at the CBN special bills yesterday, we saw that the 2nd of May 2022 paper had a boost of 3 billion naira transacted in that paper yesterday. Was it to manage liquidity?
Yeah, basically, it is. There's a lot of liquidity in the market, 308 billion, like I said, coming in yesterday. There's no auction. There's nothing, barring any liquidity changes. We don't see anything that's going to take out liquidity from the system. There's no FX auction in nearby. So people are just trying to be efficient with their books and then buying special bills and then cherry picking fixed assets, fixed income assets here and there from the fixed income market.
Thank you so much, Choma Udu, fixed income dealer at GT Bank Limited. So we're hoping that we don't have a predominantly quiet session this week, Ini. We're hoping that the market will pick up, especially with the fact that the interest or, dividends are coming in from corporate earnings and the equities segment, and people are positioning there, probably rebalancing their portfolio to probably profit from that. We're hoping that that's not what's causing, extending the lull in the fixed income markets. And we're just hoping that we get a pickup from both ends and the market, is,
and then we'll certainly be waiting for the results. I know mostly once there's any securities out for sale, at the end of the day, we say, oh, it was oversubscribed, so
but we're just hoping there's a trend now that, the long paper for the NTB has always been dropping by the basis points. Like the 1-year paper keeps dropping, and I hope it's going to be the reverse this time around.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Will.
You're welcome.
So let's take another break now. When we come back from that break, we'll be heading to London to find out what's happening in the United Kingdom. Do join us then. It's Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. Well, since we kind of run away from talking about the cost of property in the UK, this time it's more about office space. We have Juliana now to tell us more on this issue. Hello, Juliana. Good morning.
Good morning, Inni.
So it seems we're seeing the consequences of the ease of COVID-19 restrictions and people returning to office now. We're seeing rentals going up.
Yeah, absolutely. This survey, which was conducted by Zoopla, which is a property platform offering people an opportunity to buy or rent spaces, properties and residential and business properties. And they've had a look at some city centre office rental spaces, particularly in areas such as Leeds, Manchester and Birmingham, some of the other big cities outside of London. And they have found that there has been a 76% increase in demand in the month of January. And we know that this coincides with reduced restrictions in the UK and the country putting itself first as being one of the first countries in the world to learn to live with COVID-19. And it is a big issue for businesses because we know that many of them have suffered during the pandemic. It has been very, very difficult for them. And we know that lots of office spaces were completely left empty during the pandemic because nobody was there. Lots of people were working from home. And there are still some firms, big firms, particularly the tech firms, civil service is another example of some organisations that would rather their staff have a hybrid environment. But not everybody is doing that, which is why we're seeing office spaces become even more difficult to get, more hard to attain. Apparently, you're paying £64 extra per month. That may not sound a lot, but when you're still paying staff wages and you're dealing with a rise in inflation currently at 5.4%, it is particularly tough. We don't genuinely talk about spaces outside of the UK, but Boris Johnson's government is really fixated on this levelling up agenda, so it's likely to be a topic of discussion when the Conservative Party meet the Labour opposition party at Prime Minister's Questions later today.
Okay, we'll certainly follow all those interesting conversations they have there. And then we go to Brexit now. What's the story behind, deciding the fate of Northern Ireland and Brexit border? What's that about?
Oh, goodness, it's an ongoing story, isn't it? And I think it was made even more difficult when last week we saw the resignation of the Northern Ireland First Minister, Paul Givan. He resigned from his position in protest to the protocol, which is basically a border that has been put in the Irish Sea, so that the bed of water that you see between the rest of the United Kingdom and North and South Ireland, which, according to political officials, is causing businesses a lot of trouble. However, if you look at some of the hard stats and facts that have come out of business leaders within the Northern Ireland and the UK, it doesn't appear to hold water. Some businesses say they've been thriving since the protocol has been put into place. So it does appear as if this Northern Ireland protocol issue is purely a geopolitical issue. Now, Whitehall and Brussels have been going back and forth. There have been long-running talks. Some bureaucracy that has been put in place has been delayed time and time again. But I think for now, for Boris Johnson's government, the focus is going to be on whether or not an election will hold to try and find a First Minister for Northern Ireland, somebody that does believe in the protocol, because just a few months before Paul Givan resigned, we had the resignation of Arlene Foster, who is a stout unionist. So it is a huge issue. Typically, when a First Minister resigns, you have 7 days to find a replacement, to have an internal election before the Parliament will be dissolved. But we know that Ireland and Northern Ireland is a very, very, very tense issue. So I believe there has been legislation that was just passed through Parliament to extend that 7-day deadline to 6 weeks. So within the next 6 weeks, hopefully we'll find a new leader that will appease Whitehall and Brussels. And until then, the kind of debate about will there not be a Northern Ireland border is going to be left on hold, I think, for now.
All right. Thank you so much, Julian. I will talk to you again at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Thank you.
Let's move to the crypto space now. Ladi has been doing a lot of pumping. Unlike what's going on in equities.
Right,
but I mean,
this
we all have our good days and not so good ones.
Yeah, this is looking more fun than the equities market right now. But, we talked about caution yesterday, and yes, caution is needed, because right now we're having a pullback, from the incredible runs we've had a few days now. Market cap now is pulled back from the 2 trillion mark, but just a little bit, still close there. It's down 2.59%, just $1.99 trillion. Volume traded, $95.75 billion, down about 6.10%. And we see Bitcoin dominance still not left at 41-42% range. Bitcoin this morning, $43,714. Did get as high as $45,000. We started a correction from that level. Flurry of news coming in with the hack for Bitfinex. See, the U.S. government has seized some of that Bitcoin. So we see the market reacting to that news. It's down 2.24%. Volume traded, $30.99 billion in Bitcoin. We see Ethereum there holding that $3,000 support. It's $3,100. It's down 2.37%. Once Bitcoin goes down, all other coins follow. Volume traded, $15.59 billion. So Ethereum is not looking bad this morning. But we'll see the top also market cap. They're having pullbacks too. Let's see BNB there, $414. Did start a run from about $360. It's now about $414 per coin. It's down 5.50%. And Cardano there, $1.19, down 3.10%. And XRP, not looking bad today. It's just down about 2.17%. Still has that bullish momentum going. All right, let's bring in Gilbert Japata now. Hello, Gilbert. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ladi.
Yeah, great to have you. So we heard about that seize by the U.S. Justice Department, about $3.6 billion in Bitcoin from the Bitfinex hack that happened in 2016. What does this mean for the crypto industry?
Okay, this is quite historic on the Justice Department. as this seizure is the highest financial seizure in history, and also a clear message to those involved in unlawful activities in the market that the market is no safe haven for them. We have more forensic experts right now in the market that there have ever been. The Act of 2016 resulted to the theft of over 120 Bitcoin, which was about $1 at then. But before now, they have the small amount of this asset has already periodically always been taken. But a much amount, which was right now, is valued at about $3.6 billion. This is quite a clear message for the market, and also the government should be aware that currency goes only with just coming market and government. It is their responsibility to make it for anyone in the market.
All right, quite an interesting seize there, but now I'm wondering, what's the U.S. government going to do with all that Bitcoin? Are they going to sell it or hold it?
Okay. It is going to be returned back to Bitfinex because in a long phone and Bitfinex say they are going to work with the Justice Department to recover this phone, and once it is recovered, within 18 months, they will pay back to investors that it was lost with their token, which is in the market trading deal. While about 80% of the equivalent of what will be recovered will be used to back to. So likely, it will be returned to Bitfinex.
Okay, so looking at the top 5 gainers there, we see the token for Bitfinex, that's the Leo token. It's trading at $7, had a 53.26% jump. Is this from the hack news?
And I think it's more bullish for Leo since it has come to the attention of the market. More people know now about it. When the activity as promised will take place, which will be buyback and token bonds, it is also bullish for Leo as well.
So it's quite bullish news for them. All right, Gilbert, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Mr. Laddie.
All right, looking at the top gainers there, we see Tezos there, $4.44, up 6.42%. We see the top gainers list is quite lean today. We don't have much double-digit gains, just Leo from that U.S. seize for the hacked coins from Bitfinex. And Ethereum Classic there, $3.28 is up 3.31%. And the Gala token there, one of the metaverse coins, is up about 2.51% at 36 cents per coin. And top 5 losers, see Bora there, $1.16, down 8.98%. And Render token, one of the new rivals on the top 100 list there, $3.30, down 8.91%. And we say Arweave and Arweave there, $36.35 per coin, down 7.38%. So it's still neutral right now. We're out of fear. We're out of extreme fear. It's neutral, not looking bad. We might get to greed at some point.
Well, let's hope we get there soon. Maybe by Friday?
Maybe. Let's, in fact, you're going to check your crystal ball and tell me what's going to happen on Friday. I'll be waiting for you.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laddie. Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of this midweek edition of Business Morning. Tomorrow, we'll be back again with a fresh episode. Do join us then. I'm Ini John Mekwa.